Okay, so now we get to the topic of outlining and data tables. These are two really powerful features of Excel, and especially with data tables, you're going to use them in the project. So let's take a look at these things. Something that's important to understand about these, about the way we've been dealing with Excel up to now is Excel has always handled every cell as an independent entity. We may think of a set of cells as having some kind of organization, but up to this point, Excel has never thought that way. It always processed our spreadsheet as a collection of independent cells. So, for example, we use this table for creating charts. Well, we think of it as a table, with rows for the models across the middle and columns for the years going along. So we sort of thought of it as a table. Our imagination thought of it as a table, but Excel never thought of it as anything other than just a collection of cells that had no particular relationship to one another. Any kind of organization on it was just something that we imagined in our heads. So now we're going to move from a situation where Excel handled every cell independently using this outlining and tables feature, where we can have Excel handle a set of cells as an organized group instead of just a bunch of individual cells. So in a way, for the first time, Excel will think of the organization of our spreadsheets pretty much in the same way that we think about them. So what we're going to look at is a sales history worksheet that has rows and columns. It's the kind of thing you've been seeing all along. History worksheet. It's in the outlining and data tables workbook. And what we've got here is simply a set of records where we had the date of the sale to the customer, the name of the widget we sold them, who the customer was, quantity, price, and a bunch of other characteristics like size, color, total, and so on. If I scroll down in this worksheet, and oh, by the way, notice that the header column, when I scrolled off of the top of the spreadsheet, you can actually come up to the View menu in Excel and select Freeze Panes and say Freeze Top Pane, or Freeze Top Row. And what that does is draws a kind of a darker line here between rows 1 and 2. And it allows you to scroll down the worksheet without, while still leaving the header on the visible. If I scroll all the way down this, you can see that there's like 800 and some records of data inside this worksheet. And I'm going to come back up to the top. So this thing goes from 2012 to 2017. So we know we've got about 5 years worth of data in here, but it's hundreds of rows. There's no way we can get our arms around this without boiling it down somehow, and outlining is one way. So suppose what we want to know from the data is the sales by customer. Now look at this list. The list is organized by date. That's the sort order on the list. I want to outline it by customer. And this is a really important point with outlines. In order for it to work, you have to sort your table on the column that you want to outline. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the Data tab and put my cursor anywhere in the customer column like this and just click on the A to Z. What that will do is sort the entire table by the customer column. So we have Biddle Pipes first, and if I scroll down farther, then we get a change to Franz Filtration Technologies, and then farther down we get the next customer, Hiram Actuators, and so on. So what that did was organize the data by customer. Now I'm ready to go ahead and do outlining. So I click on the Data tab, and over here on the right-hand side is something called Subtotaling. I call it outlining, they call it subtotaling. Click on Subtotal. My cursor was someplace inside the table, so now Excel has selected the entire table. It found the edges of the table, column H and row 840 or something like that. So here I have to say, for each change in customer, I want to sum up the total column, not color. Now that's all I have to do. Customer, count, total, and click on OK. And it chugs away for a few seconds, and I get this business over here on the left that we have never seen before. There's a 1, 2, 3 over here and a couple of lines. And it bumped the worksheet over a little bit. Other than that, it looks about the same until I scroll down here, and where it changed from Biddle to Franz, it put in a total of 96 rows. You know what? I didn't want 96 rows. I wanted the sum. So I'm going to go back into the subtotal and fix this by selecting sum of the total column. Now I click on OK, and now I get total dollars here as a sum of the total column, 1,017,000 for Biddle Pipeline. If I scroll down to the bottom of Franz, I'll see here that we did 1,295,000 with Franz. So it's every time the customer changed, it threw in a subtotal at the bottom. If I scroll back up to the top, I can use these buttons up here to start collapsing the outline. So if I click on 2, for example, it collapses it to 1 row per customer, and I see just the totals. Now the other rows are still in the worksheet. You can see the row numbers skipping from 1 for the header to 98 to 242 to 298 and so on. I can selectively expand just one of the customers by going like that and seeing the individual detail rows for Franz. If I click on 3, that will re-expand the whole table, so I'm seeing all the individual rows for Biddles and Franz and so on. So 2 gives me by the customer, and 1 subtotals the entire table, which is $8,509,000. Now think about what's going on here. We're subtotaled on customer. In effect, in the past, we had to use a SUMIF to get this. But here we're able to get it by clicking and pointing and selecting items off of lists. This makes it much easier to do. If I want to remove the outline and go back to normal again, I come up here to subtotal and I simply say remove all, and it puts my table back where it was before. So that's how you do outlining. Now, back to the handout here. I give you some examples of how to do it, so you can see where you click data and then sort. We had to sort on customer or widget or whatever it is we're filtering on. Then we set up subtotaling. You can collapse your outlines. We can change the function to average. So if I want to change and do an outline on customer here, I can put a subtotal in very quickly, say average total, and click on OK. Then click up here on 2 to shrink it, and I can see what the average sale is for each one of these customers. Notice how fast this is to do. It's really quick. And maybe even better than that, it's very hard to make an error. If you select average, you're going to get the average, and you're going to get it for every one without any errors in it at all. Let's remove it and go back to normal. Then to the handout. That's how you remove it. If we want to change the outline to be by widget instead of customer, I can come back in here, and I have to sort on widget first, but let's not do that. Let's leave it sorted on customer and try to subtotal on widget so we can see what it looks like. Come up here to subtotal. I'll say I want a subtotal on widget, and I want to sum up dollar sales. Now when I click on this, it can run for quite a while because it's creating zillions of subtotals. Every time the widget changes, it has to create a new subtotal, and that's very time consuming. So this may run for maybe a minute or so before it actually produces the result. And I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to sit around and watch this thing compute. There. It took it about a minute to do it. Now look at the mess we've got here. There's a subtotal after PT 556, another one after 548 powder. In other words, almost every row has a subtotal under it. Look at, here's 2 1044s in a row, so they got one subtotal. But it doesn't really make any sense anymore because I keep having the same thing over and over again. It's a mess. So that's a sign when you have all of these zillions of subtotals in the thing, you know, almost every row is individually subtotaled. That's a sign that you haven't sorted on the column that you're subtotaling. So what I'm going to do is come up here and do a remove all. Put it back to a normal worksheet. Now I'm going to come up, click on the data tab, and click on, I have my cursor in the widget column. I'm going to click on A to Z to sort on widget. Now that I've done that, I can come and subtotal on widget, and when I click OK, it'll very quickly give me my subtotals, and you can see that I've got, you know, many rows between each one, and I can see the subtotal dollars for those very easily. And it does throw in a grand total at the bottom, so there's the 8,509,000. So the thing to remember about outlining is the two tips. This will make sense more after we see the video on data tables, but do not convert your table to an Excel, your data to an Excel table first. You won't be able to outline it. And you must sort the data on the column you're outlining or you get a mess like I just showed you. So that's the scoop on outlining. The next video is on data tables.